What if the greatest cathedrals of Europe, those soaring Gothic marvels of stone and light, were not built by the church, but by a secretive order of warrior monks? Why did so many of these structures suddenly appear in the 12th and 13th centuries, almost as if a hidden force had unleashed a wave of sacred architecture across the continent? Some believe the answer lies with the Knights Templar, not just as crusaders, but as financiers and architects of a forgotten vision. So today, we'll uncover the shadowy connections between the Templars, lost Eastern knowledge, and the mysterious rise of Gothic cathedrals. But before we start decoding the secrets hidden in stone, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us what other ancient mysteries you'd like us to explore. Let's step into the shadows and into the architecture of secrets. For centuries, Europe had built in stone, but never like this. Suddenly, in the heart of the 12th century, cities and villages across France, England, and Germany erupted in a frenzy of construction. Massive stone cathedrals began rising, with walls thinner than ever before, ceilings impossibly high, and windows so vast and colorful they transformed sunlight into a divine spectacle. This was the birth of the Gothic Cathedral, and no one had ever seen anything like it. The sheer scale and beauty of these buildings defied medieval logic. They appeared in rapid succession, seemingly without a centralized plan or funding source. From Notre Dame de Paris to Chartres, Reims to Cologne, it was as if an invisible force had passed through Europe, whispering blueprints into the ears of masons, sculptors, and visionaries. But how? These cathedrals weren't just religious spaces. They were astronomical clocks, books in stone, and political statements carved into eternity. Yet their construction required resources of colossal proportions. Thousands of workers, rare materials, and above all, money. An ocean of money. And this is where the mystery begins. No historical record clearly identifies who financed the Gothic boom. Local kings and bishops took credit, but their treasuries were insufficient. The church's public wealth couldn't explain the simultaneous construction of so many grand cathedrals in such a short period. But then quietly, a pattern emerges. Many of these cathedrals were built along old pilgrimage routes, roads once patrolled and protected by an elite military order sworn to secrecy and faith, the Knights Templar. Could it be that behind the miracles of Gothic architecture stood the Templars? Not as warriors this time, but as silent architects of a hidden agenda. The idea seems almost heretical, but the deeper we look into the stone, the more the shadows start to speak. And what they whisper points to the east. When most people think of the Knights Templar, they imagine battle-hardened crusaders, armored men charging into the Holy Land with swords drawn and crosses emblazoned on their chests. But that image is only part of the truth. Behind the clamor of swords and the scent of blood-soaked sand, the Templars were building something far more powerful than a military legacy. They were building a financial empire. By the early 13th century, the Templars had become Europe's most sophisticated and trusted financial institution. Pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem could deposit their money at a Templar commandery in London and withdraw it in Acre or Antioch using a coded letter, a medieval form of a traveler's check. Kings entrusted them with fortunes, nobles used them as bankers, and the church, despite its unease, depended on them. Their properties stretched across continents, their network rivaled that of any merchant guild, and their wealth was staggering. Yet few documents explain how they used it all. While other military orders faded into obscurity, the Templars expanded. Not by the sword, but by silence. They amassed land, treasure, and influence. But there was something peculiar about the locations they chose to settle in, near ancient ruins, at the crossroads of trade routes, and, curiously, in towns where grand cathedrals would soon rise. Coincidence? Some historians believe the Templars had a vision, not just to defend the Holy Sepulchre, but to reshape the Christian world, to fuse their newfound knowledge from the East with the faith of the West. And if you're going to transform the spiritual heart of Europe, what better way than through architecture? They had the means, they had the motive, and above all, they had the secrecy. The order reported only to the Pope. No king, no bishop, no emperor could demand an audit of their finances or an explanation for where their silver went. Behind monastery walls, transactions were whispered, contracts sealed with wax and steel. Perhaps they weren't just financing temples of stone. Perhaps they were encoding messages in geometry, in symbols, in light, and Europe never saw it coming. The Holy Land was not just a battlefield. It was a crossroads of civilizations. While Crusaders fought under the banner of the cross, another quieter revolution was taking place. The Knights Templar, unlike many of their contemporaries, did more than fight. They observed, they listened, and most importantly, they learned. In the bustling cities of Jerusalem, Acre, and Damascus, the Templars encountered a level of architectural mastery that surpassed anything in Europe. They walked through mosques with perfect domes, admired the pointed arches of Islamic architecture, and stood in awe beneath the stalactite ceilings of palaces that seemed to defy gravity. While others saw enemies, the Templars saw knowledge. Islamic architects were using advanced geometry, precise ratios, and acoustics to create spaces that enhanced both structure and spirituality. The muqarnas, the ribbed vaults, the use of light to evoke divine presence, these techniques were revolutionary. And though they had no place in Romanesque Europe, they began to appear, almost suddenly, in Gothic cathedrals. How? The timing is uncanny. The return of Templar knights from the East coincides almost perfectly with the architectural shift across Europe. The heavy rounded arches of Romanesque churches were replaced by pointed arches, a signature of Islamic design. Walls no longer bore weight alone. Flying buttresses distributed it, allowing walls to disappear into glass. These innovations didn't evolve slowly. They erupted, as if someone had brought back a blueprint, but not just any blueprint. It is said that the Templars delved into ancient scrolls hidden beneath Jerusalem. Some believe they discovered texts from the Library of Alexandria, preserved in Eastern hands. Others speak of esoteric knowledge, sacred geometry, the mathematics of light, even musical harmonics encoded into stone. Legends, perhaps. Yet the evidence is carved into the walls of Chartres, Reims, and Amiens, cathedrals that not only stand tall but sing with precision, harmony, and a strange, almost mystical symmetry. These were not merely churches, they were instruments of divine resonance, and those who built them may have been initiated into something far older than Christianity itself. Walk into a Gothic cathedral, and at first you're overwhelmed by beauty. The soaring vaults, the glowing stained glass, the grandeur. But look closer, and something else emerges. A hidden language, a code carved in stone, etched into windows, and embedded deep within the design itself. This isn't just architecture, it's a message. Across cathedrals from Chartres to Strasbourg, strange symbols appear again and again, not overt, but deliberate. A labyrinth embedded in the floor of Chartres Cathedral, mirroring ancient initiatory paths. 8-pointed stars hidden in rose windows, echoing symbols used by Eastern mystics and mathematicians. The Vesica Piscis, 2 interlocking circles forming the basis of sacred geometry, used in everything from window tracery to floor plans. These were not Christian symbols, not entirely. They belonged to a much older system, one that connected mathematics to mysticism, geometry to the divine, and architecture to initiation. And at the center of this fusion, the Knights Templar. The Templars had long been rumored to engage with forbidden knowledge, teachings from ancient Egypt, Persia, and even remnants of Greek Pythagorean thought. Their time in the East gave them access not only to texts, but to scholars, mystics and architects who had preserved traditions banned or forgotten in the West. Incorporating this knowledge into cathedral design would have been dangerous, heretical even, so they hid it in ratios, proportions, alignments. A cathedral might be laid out to mirror celestial constellations or align with solstices. Its proportions might follow the Fibonacci sequence, long before it was known in Europe. And behind the ornate facades, secret chambers, blind staircases, and sealed crypts hint at rituals no longer remembered. Perhaps the most famous example is the rose window, a masterpiece of symmetry and color. But beneath its beauty lies a mystery. Its geometry reflects Kabbalistic thought, Islamic pattern work, and mathematical harmonics, all of which were unknown to most medieval builders, but not to the Templars. They didn't sign their work, they didn't take credit, but their fingerprints are everywhere, in the light that enters through stained glass and strikes a specific point only on solstice mornings, in the numbers of steps, columns, and stones, in the silence between the echoes of choirs, shaped by acoustics no medieval mind should have understood. The church called it divine inspiration, but perhaps it was something else entirely. On a cold Friday morning, October 13th, 1307, an order was sent out across the Kingdom of France. In a single coordinated strike, the Knights Templar were arrested, thousands of them, accused of blasphemy, heresy, devil worship, and obscene rituals. The world was stunned. These were the church's defenders, crusaders, martyrs. How could they fall so swiftly? But the truth ran deeper than politics or papal ambition. The destruction of the Templars wasn't just a matter of power, it was a purge, a surgical removal of a threat far greater than gold or influence. It was a silencing. Over the previous century, the Templars had grown more than wealthy. They had grown independent. Their architectural knowledge, financial network, and esoteric traditions placed them outside the reach of kings and popes alike. And worse, their fingerprints were all over the sacred spaces of Christendom. They had helped build cathedrals that told a parallel story, one of hidden wisdom, of ancient knowledge reborn, a gospel not of scripture but of stone. That made them dangerous. Many believed that the charges brought against them were fabricated, confessions extracted under torture, designed to destroy their reputation. But a darker theory suggests that their real crime was not heresy, but knowledge. Knowledge that threatened to expose the foundations of the church's authority. Knowledge encoded into buildings that were supposed to glorify God, but instead whispered of geometry, balance, and cosmic order. And so, the hammer fell. Grand Master Jacques de Molay was burned alive. The Templar commanderies were dissolved, their archives vanished, their wealth was seized, and their architectural legacy, though never officially attributed to them, became the silent inheritance of Europe. But you can still feel the rupture. After their fall, the era of cathedral building waned. The harmony and mystery of Gothic design gave way to other forms: Renaissance clarity, Baroque grandeur, neoclassical order. Beautiful, yes, but no longer mysterious, no longer encoded. The builders were gone, and with them, perhaps, the last true architects of a forgotten truth. Today, millions step through the towering portals of Gothic cathedrals with eyes full of wonder, but minds unaware of the secrets beneath their feet. They gaze at the rose windows, marvel at the vaults, and walk the length of ancient naves without ever knowing whose vision made them possible. Tour guides speak of bishops and kings, of guilds and masons. Few mention the possibility that these marvels were born not just of faith, but of a hidden plan. The Knights Templar, erased from history by edict and execution, may have left behind something far more enduring than treasure. They left behind design, a network of structures scattered across Europe, aligned with stars, coded in ratios, and humming with geometry. Buildings not meant only to inspire awe, but to awaken something deep within. a remembrance of order, of harmony, of a universe built on purpose. And this was no accident. Whether by ancient wisdom gathered in Jerusalem or by secret teachings shared only within the order, the Templars infused these cathedrals with meaning beyond doctrine. Every arch pointed toward the divine, but also toward the truth. A truth no longer spoken, only preserved in silence and stone. Yet even in silence, their presence remains. In the way light filters through stained glass at just the right angle on equinox mornings. In the strange symbols carved where no parishioner would ever look. In the enduring mystery that keeps historians, architects, and seekers returning century after century asking, who built this? Really? The answer may never be fully known. But if you listen carefully inside the cool, echoing halls of a Gothic cathedral, you might still hear them. Not voices, not chants, but intention. The legacy of builders who never signed their names because the truth they carved was never meant to be claimed, only discovered. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video and you're passionate about this kind of content, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming videos and discover more fascinating stories. See you in the next video.